Parenting in the 21st century is ever evolving, and while you balance work, kids, and your sanity, it's easy to feel discouraged. Welcome to the Super Parent Syndrome with your host, Dr. Nick Fanning.
Stop touching it. So let me give you a little bit of backstory on this. Just the other night, my 7-year-old daughter, Hayden, she was presenting to me this ouchie or owie that she had on her ankle. And the reason that this actually occurred is actually she had a bug bite. And the weird thing about this, I knew when she had her bug bite, because she told me right away, she's like, ow! I was like, okay, what's wrong? And she's like, oh, bug bit me, and yeah, it was red and it's kind of there. I was like, okay, well, just don't touch it and it should be just fine. Well, like any 7-year-old, she couldn't. She just really could not leave it alone. She kept touching it, and by the time it was almost time for bedtime, this thing that had been the size of maybe a pencil eraser at most was now like the bigger part of a nickel. It had nearly tripled in size, and it was looking pretty red and sore. And basically I was like, what happened to me saying don't touch it? And she was like, well, it itched, it bothered me, and so I kept picking at it. And now look, now I can't go to bed on time, or whatever it might be. And, it's funny that, kids love to bring up these things last moment just to delay bedtime. You hear about things such as, the moon's gravity is too tight, or I'm too tired to walk up the stairs. It's ridiculous. Anyway, so back to the story here. My whole point is this. In our lives, there's plenty of things that if we just left it alone, it would heal and go away. Physical injury is not the only thing that's like this. You get an ouchie, you leave it alone, the body's going to do what it needs to do to heal that, to repair it as best as it can, and it's going to do so with an amazing amount of efficiency. Mental, emotional pain is no different. Right now, there are stories that are keeping you up at night. There's events that we beat ourselves up on, such as, oh man, I should have said this, or what if in college I would have done X, Y, Z. All these things, these painful memories or these painful points in our lives where we try to make a decision and try to angst over what we should have done are just another owie that we're touching and not letting heal. And so what I'm impressing upon you folks today is to just leave it alone and maybe get some closure on it. So, just like her owie, we put some oil on it, and we, some essential oils that my wife came up with, and I don't know how it works, but it worked amazingly well. There are things that we can do for these stories or this negative self-talk that we do for ourselves. And so what I challenge you folks is this. Because the guilt and shame are our shackle and ball and chain, those things are going to continue to bring us down, to cause us to play smaller, if you will, to cause us to not go all out, okay? But freedom, forgiveness, and expansion are those tools that are going to get us out of guilt and shame. So there's a couple things that are going to be consistent in your life that you might be replaying over and over again. One, scenarios or old stories or things that happened that you continually think about. If you're laying in bed and you're thinking about, your prom date and XYZ happened, whether you were humiliated or maybe you should have married the girl or maybe you shouldn't have, whatever it would be. If you're constantly touching upon that, you're not going to move forward. You're constantly putting a foot back in the past, and we need to let it go. Okay? I'm going to show you how to do that in a second. Secondarily, not just situations and things that have happened, but also what are some common themes or phrases that you're telling yourself? Okay? So a couple things that, I tell myself is, I'm divorced, and one of the things that I constantly go over is like, oh man, I failed with my first marriage. My wife didn't desire me, X, Y, blah, 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 whether it's true or not. That was a story I was telling in my head. So when I come into my new marriage, these old stories like to poke their head up out, like, oh, you already messed up one time, you're going to do it again. And so folks, you have to interrupt that pattern and really just say, this is why they're explicit to say, but fuck that story. Because it has to be such a pattern interrupter that you could say, what, that is ridiculous. I do need to get rid of this crap, okay? So not only situations or scenarios, there's also phrases that we do and we talk about ourselves of saying oh, I'm just too fat to do this, or man, if I had more money, or I'm always so broke, or I can't do this, whatever it might be, or man, I'm just a terrible parent, or my kids don't love me, or my kids hate me, and see, that's why they don't want to do this XYZ. These stories and these phrases that we tell ourselves will constantly rear their ugly head the more you touch upon them. And we need to just leave them alone. So again, like I said, repeat after me. Fuck that story. Because it really is just that. It's just a story. And you need to interrupt that. And that's one of those principles that was taught to me by these guys I'm working with Wake Up Warrior. It's an amazing group, guys, by the way. But the whole point is this. Interrupt the pattern. Shock your body into thinking something new. And then your body is open for a new story of saying such as, instead of saying, I'm too fat to do this, you could just say, like, you know what? I worked really hard to get to this weight, and it's going to take that much work to get off of this weight, and it's not going to happen overnight. And I know that a small daily action is going to take me closer to my goals. Instead of saying, I'm fat and I'm never going to get thin again. You know, whatever it might be. But use this strategy, the fuck you strategy, to identify one of those scenarios, to identify those phrases, and to really just do a pattern shift, meaning breaking free from that story so that you can move on. I know each one of you have one or two things immediately popped in your head, whether it had to deal with kids or divorce or your work or your current physical or business situation or whatever it might be. I challenge you to take a look at those and start the healing process. I'm going to list some links in my show notes about some good books to work with this through. But otherwise, parents, thank you so much for spending a little bit of time with me. I love and appreciate you folks, because I know that your free time is very, very scarce, and I honor you for spending it a little bit with me. So, it's Dr. Nick Fanning, signing off.
Thanks for listening to another episode of The Super Parent Syndrome. Please be sure to visit peptalksforparents.com for more content and our free newsletter. And remember, you are not alone.